Hello, Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network listeners. I am Jeff Hawkins, co-host of Shake Them Ropes, with a very special announcement. If it's been a while or you've never listened to us before, the original gang is back. Myself and Rob McCarran, back talking wrestling. We have no idea where this show's going to go, where we're going to keep any of the old bits or any of the old things in there. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a journey, and we'd like for you to come along with us. Only on Shake Them Ropes on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. Fast to freedom. Stars tonight together. Hear everyone singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Not going to take up a lot of time.
Okay, all right. This is I'm famously in my movie watching era.
Right, yeah. And part of my recommendation is it kind of plays off like short films, this TV show. Neighbors on HBO/Max is one of the wildest things that I have seen in a long time. It's basically a cinema verite series of short documentaries of neighbor struggles, and it's a real you know how Errol Morris, I don't know if you're movie face, you've gone into the documentaries yet, have you?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, I'll pull back and choose an easier one. You know how Werner Herzog is a weird motherfucker and has weird things he does his movies about?
Yeah, and I like the video of him talking about the beauty of skateboarding a lot. That's sort of my connection to him.
So these are like some of like the most wild people that they could pick. Everyone has guns. There's a beach battle, but each episode is like 23 minutes each, and it takes place over like a period of conflict of neighbors. And it's in a lot of ways it's like the dark side of just American life in a lot of ways, but it's also not necessarily like political in what it does. It's just like an exploration of just how crazy we have gotten with neighborhood beefs.
Okay, I like this. This is an interesting concept. It's on HBO, which I have. Yep. I'm into this. So, all right, that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that like there's going to be like 6 episodes of it, so it's not like the rehearsal where you're just like, oh my god, how am I going to like get caught up with all of this Nathan Fielder all of a sudden? This one, at least a little bit, is just a little slice of weirdness that I think you would enjoy. It was something that I caught on this weekend, but Case, that's not what we're here to talk about today.
No. Mike Spears, the professional storm cloud, is here, and I think we for the first time ever, Mike might say, unfortunately, we have some Dragongate to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, just a complete, just all honesty here. I feel like I was a lot more warm going into Unos Dos Tres than you were. And coming out of Unos Dos Tres, I feel like our opinions are completely flip-flopped about everything. And that's where... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it is interesting. You know, I was sort of following along with the show in real time and had it on sort of a second screen during the Psypatra Team 2000X match and had a little bit of the Dreamgate match going in real time. And it was interesting to follow along and see widespread negative opinion. And to be clear, I did not like this show. And there are a lot of things in this promotion going on right now that I am not a fan of and that I am slightly concerned about. I am not at a doomsday level that I think some people are. I think I'm here to maybe offer some historical perspective into some other low points in big show history in Dragongate. But I was expecting, just based off of what I was reading, and again, I did not like the show, but a far worse show than what we got. And I came away from Uno Dos Tres with more of a shoulder shrug than anything, which is not what I want out of a big Dragongate show, but a level of apathy and a level of like, all right, some good, some bad. We'll see what they do here in Osaka, and we'll see what they do in Corkin. But I could tell just briefly talking to you today and briefly talking to you before we started recording that this is a show that really got your dander up.
Yeah, and I think we should just kind of just get into the big picture stuff with the show, just off the top. Fukuoka Kukusai Center, this is now the permanent date that they're going to have, or around this time, around this holiday on the 23rd. The show was on the 23rd. It was on Monday, yesterday. There's a time of recording. It is the lowest announced attendance for Dragongate ever in this building, outside of COVID restrictions, and announced 2,222. And a number like that, and with the crowd, everyone's eyebrow should rightfully kind of go up for that. I tried to track ticket sales leading up to it, Case, and I couldn't find too much on that. And it looked like they cut off half of the center, and it was one of those things that was really noticeable in the undercard, that they curtained stuff off. And it wasn't a cold Fukuoka crowd, as they're kind of notorious for, but just for the first Dragon Gate big show since Dangerous Gate back in August, just felt like first big show in 6 months. Been waiting for it, chomping at the bit, really, because everything else happening in wrestling. Knew that we had this date here on the 23rd ahead of us, and it just seems like it at least big picture wise, coming out of this show, it's a big what do we go from here, and especially as it relates to the Open the Dreamgate Championship.
Remind me again, what was the final number that we had here? It was 2,222.
Yeah, which is clearly a fake number to me.
Yeah, and it's also it's one that I'm not surprised by. I mean, I saw the aerial view. I mean, I'm well past the point of counting seats and wondering exactly how many people are in the building. It looked like a disappointing house. I know, for reference, the last G1 show that was in this building from August 3rd of last year, that was headlined by Tanahashi versus Tsuji and Finley versus Evil. That show did 2534. The last time Dragongate was in this building was December of 2024. That was the Yamato versus Dragon Dia Dreamgate Bravegate match. That was also Jason Lee and Coach Minoura versus Flamita and KZ, and Naomichi Marufuji and Takashi Sugiura versus Homare and Shun Skywalker. That show did 2765. Let me just look real quick out of curiosity to see what Final Gate 2019 did. Final Gate 2019 did an announced 3289, and that was with Ben K and Naruki Doi in the main event. Hulk and Yamato versus Shimizu and Eita, second from the top, and then a three-way Triangle Gate match that did not draw any fans to the building. Hyo, Takashi Yoshida, and Diamante versus Genki Horiguchi, KZ, and Susumi Yokosuka versus Strong Machine F, G, and J, third from the top. I do not think that sold any tickets that night, but if you want to compare it to 2019, which I think is the fair comparison there, you're down 1,000 people, and that is not surprising. I was monitoring the primary Dragongate ticket link as we got closer to this show, and none of the sections were sold out. None of the sections had limited tickets remaining. There were just big old circles saying buy tickets here for every section that they were selling. And it goes back to the point that I made last week, that I just thought this was an incredibly cold build for a big building show. And worse than that, it was a show that had an air of disappointment to it, because Dragongate came out of the gate so strong in January. They really nailed the return of Shimizu and the Shimizu versus Natural Vibe stuff. And again, I mean, we talked about that January Corkin show, which was just over a month ago. It's not like it was that long ago. And we were talking about the possibilities of this and what they could do here. And, oh, they have this to look forward to. And it is just one of those weird things that happens in this company in particular, where the calendar flips over, the tour name changes, and sometimes they just dig themselves into a hole. And they've especially done that a lot over the last 5 years. And it wouldn't shock me if 2 or 3 months from now, they've dug themselves out of that hole. The main event scene has changed, and all of a sudden we're really excited about this promotion again. That's why I maybe not all doom and gloom about it, because January was so great that I don't want to overreact to what has been a really poor February, but it has been a really poor February. And this show was just sort of the cherry on top of that expired Sunday where I left the show with a pretty bad taste in my mouth.
Right. And I think it is worth kind of noting that I think that having this show at this time of the year, like doing it really 4 weeks, or really, no, I'm doing the math wrong. Texas educational system, 8 weeks from New Year's and all of that. And we've seen it time and time again, the ripples of, okay, the Itaeon week being such a draw for everyone and people spending all their money at that point. And then you have a Valley coming after that. And it does seem like that would, if you're someone that's trying to not necessarily explain away the number, but if you're trying to take a little bit more of a charitable view of it, I think that's worth noted. Something that I noticed in the ticket sales thing, they were still offering front row walk-up seats yesterday. And that, on top of making the show, they have, I don't know how much you keep up with this case, but they have a family promotion that they do where essentially, and I don't know where the seats are. I'm certain that our listeners natively probably can explain it a little better, but like essentially like a bundle deal of like 2 parents and a kid for a certain kind of amount there. And it's a massive deduction from standard ticket prices. And they were really advertising that going into this. So it was not just like, okay, you get a situation not to do the point-to-point thing of like Glate, where Glate will like sell out the front row and that's basically it. Dragongate was trying to get everyone they could into this building and it didn't work out, to be frank.
No, it's the type of thing that, I always try to think about when we talk about attendance and numbers with Dragongate. It's like, okay, well, if I was a fan in this market, or if I was a fan in a nearby market and could make the travel, would I go to this show? And quite honestly, I don't think I would have gone to this show. There was something about this lineup on paper that didn't really speak to me. I've had my complaints about the Dreamgate build, and I think we saw a lot of my concerns come to fruition here, which was disappointing to see them not overcome the obstacles that I think they placed in front of themselves. But yeah, this was not a great show. I don't think, and I find this to be an issue with pro wrestling business analysis in general. Maybe it's just because I'm closer to the Dragongate stuff that I feel like it might affect Dragongate a little bit more. But, we're coming off of, in January, one of the highest attended Cork and Hall shows in Japan, period, post-COVID. We're coming off of a few really nice houses last year. We've talked about the localized house shows and how Dragongate has seen a tick up there. So I don't think there's any need for this giant requiem on where we're at in terms of, the business is failing and this promotion is not what it used to be, and what's Shima doing? Maybe we give Shima a call. I think Kikuta's a cool champion, and I think as long as he has the belt and as long as he's defending the Dreamgate belt in main event matches, I think we're going to see a reflection of that. But it is not, I don't think, a reflection of the overall health of this promotion when you have stuff like the Nagoya UT Homecoming show selling out as quickly as they did, and you have these continued spikes in various wrestlers' hometowns. I think there's some good with some bad there.
I feel like I have to push back a little bit because we were talking about how bad the houses were during Yamato's critically acclaimed Dreamgate run this time last year, though.
That's a fair point. I mean, look, that's been one of my bigger conundrums that I was never able to figure out why that Yamato run did not draw better than it did. And one of the points that I made, and it's something that I know Jay and I at various points in time shared a similar train of thought of, okay, the business payoff is not the great Yamato Dreamgate run. It's what comes after the great Yamato Dreamgate run. And when it seemed like we were getting a babyface Shun Skywalker championship title reign in July of 2025 and the beginning of August 2025, I think you and I were very bullish on what was to come. And then they quickly pivoted away from that. And yeah, it's been sort of a month by month. Let's chew our nails and see what the attendance is come after the big show. But You're right. I mean, we talked about that with Yamato, where I was stunned that some of those shows weren't doing better than they were, but I always felt like it was going to be okay. Yamato is paving the way for that Shun Hyo Bin Yoshioka class to be the ones that really benefit from this, and I guess Kikuta also being a man of under 30 would be one of the guys that would theoretically benefit from that. But I think what we're learning with Kikuta, and this maybe is the most grandiose statement I'll make on this show today, because again, I'm sort of coming at things from a trepidation angle and a let's take a deep breath angle. But I think what we're learning is that Kikuta is a number 2 and not a number
Yeah.
1, and I think we've seen that through now 2 Dreamgate reigns, where again I felt like his booking was medical malpractice in 2023, where they perfectly built up to him winning the title and then they did no favors to him once he got the belt. But Ben, Susumu, Gianni, and now this, and I obviously have my issues with the way that this match was built, but it was Kikuta versus Yoshioka 3, and it was supposed to feel like a big match. And I think Kikuta could go down as, one of the great Twin Gate champions in history, but I am no longer interested in seeing him hold that Dreamgate title.
Yeah, and I guess this is kind of our transition to talk about this main event. Madoka Kikuta retains the Open the Dreamgate champion after 29 minutes after his over-the-thigh pile driver that he refuses to name and a second rolling lariat after Yuki Yoshioka kicked out after 1. And it's his 4th defense. He proclaims that there is no aces, there are no challengers, there's only Kikuta, and he stands on top. And it really kind of gets me to the point when I talk about Kikuta in this run that putting the exit ramp discussion on its side, it was, as someone who I feel like comparatively, I was a little bit higher on his work going into this Yoshioka program. And I think this was the worst Dreamgate match he's had in this run. I
agree with that.
I hated the fact that after, like the one thing that about Kikuta that kind of set him a little bit apart when you looked at the rest of Gaja Dokuro was he handled his own business in the Dreamgate. And that was something that was not a huge difference, and honestly probably not as much of a positive as I'd like to think it was, but that was completely thrown out the window 5 minutes in. Crazy Gaja Dokuro just outright just interfering all throughout this until basically D-Courage 7 on 3 completely wipe out Gaja Dokuro. Maybe Shun Skywalker should be talking to these guys because they don't seem to have any problem with Gaja Dokuro whatsoever, given how Shun's been with this. And an Ishin interruption of account of the high fly flow, and that allows Shimizu to do a chair shot right in front of Yagi, who was clearly not selling or not acting like, oh, I can't see this here. And at a certain point, the match is over, and I go like, okay, this match was not awful, but this is probably my least favorite Dreamgate match since Monte versus Valletta at Dead or Alive 2024.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, that sounds like that's probably the last Dreamgate match that yeah, it's got to be that. And then even then you go back to Kikuta's reign, and it's probably
Henry
the last
versus Yoshioka.
Yeah, it's probably the last Yoshioka match, which was the last Dreamgate match that fell this flat. I mean, I'm with you. For me, I think they came in a little bit behind the 8 ball where I already wasn't looking forward to it, but there's a few different ways we could look at this. If you want to talk about just the idea of heel interference in Dragongate, I think anybody that loves this promotion has made peace with a certain level of absurdity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That comes in that spot. Now, I don't want to see it in Dreamgate matches, period. And I will continue to harp on this point until I reach some clarity as a viewer that I don't understand Madoka Kikuta's character. Is he supposed to be a killer, brute force, overpowering Dreamgate champion who is slaying the heavyweights of the roster? Or is he a cheating, weaselly heel who needs all of his guys to thwart Yuki Yoshioka? It's just not making sense to me on what they want to do with him. But in terms of the interference and the cheating from Gaja Dokuro, I mean, it's not new to us. I mean, we're numb to all of these various heel interference spots, but I don't like seeing them in Dreamgate matches. And I found the Gaja Dokuro stuff here to be the most unimaginative, least creative way of going about it. I even thought the Ishin interference on Yagi, for that not to lead to some sort of heel ejection spot where they have to leave and where D-Courage and Vibes and Love and Peace come out and forcibly remove Gaja Dokuro from ringside, to just have that be a thing that happens with no consequence whatsoever, let alone the weapon spots that would come later. I found that to be really egregious and distracting. And then you have a cold, send the fans home sad finish as well. And that's removing Yoshioka not winning from the conversation. That's just the reality of what we saw, not the hypothetical of, I found the referee interference to be egregious. I found the finish to be cold. And oh, by the way, Madoka Kikuta is still your Dreamgate champion.
Right. And the fact that if this was the time to take the belt off of him, like, I don't know what else they could have done to prepare for Yoshioka other than how bad the build was, of course. Putting that aside, you're just left with a thing of, all right, let's look at the Dragon Gate schedule. We don't expect a Dreamgate match to be announced for anything coming up for this weekend in Osaka or on Tuesday in Korakuen Hall. We keep on kind of going down the schedule, and it's like, all right, Golden Coliseum. Do we think that there's a cage match at Golden Coliseum? Because if so, that changes who it might be. But at the end of the day, there's still no real direction whatsoever. And it does not feel like that the company is like at a point where we would go, hey, maybe this is a time in a venue that we go for something off the beaten path and go for like Hyo or Rita or something like that. That's not going to happen. That's probably not going to happen. And it's just, all right, is this going to be built up like to a Mochizuki title defense? Because who really knows at this point? Because to me, it feels like that the cage match is already very clear here, and Kakuta's not going to be a part of it.
Well, Kakuta's not going to be a part of it. There's a chance that Kakuta's not part of that show because that overlaps with Champion Carnival, which he's in. And there's a show, there's the show on the 26th. So the Champion Carnival lineup this year, we don't have the blocks yet, but it's Ri Saito, Kenta Miyahara, Go Shiozaki, Hideki Suzuki, Jun Saito, Ryuki Honda, Rinayabe, Yuma Anzai, Zion, Odyssey, Talos, Cyrus, Kumarashi, Kingo Mishima, Daisuke Sekimoto, and Madoka Kikuta. And that, I don't have the All Japan schedule in front of me. I don't remember if the tour concludes on the 26th, which is the same night as Golden Coliseum, or if there's just a show that night. But there is a possibility that Kikuta is just not involved in the April big show, which makes all of this more confusing because I don't trust Dragongate to have the political strength to keep Kikuta strong throughout that entire tournament. I mean, he'll get one really big win. He might beat Shiozaki, he might beat Miyahara, he might be one of the Saitos. That's not going to surprise me at all. But I'm still thinking that he's going to finish the tournament 500. I've seen some people over the last 24 hours go, oh, maybe this means he's winning Champion Carnival. I'd be happy to be wrong just for the sake of protecting the lineage of the Dreamgate belt, but I don't see that happening. That feels impossible to me.
So the tournament, the Champion Carnival doesn't conclude until May 17th in Oda Ward. The show on the 26th, nothing has been announced for it. It's a Niigata, which is as I pulled up the Google Maps, it is a 6-hour drive or 4-hour train ride. And I don't think that is an option to do the bullet train. So essentially, he either is not booked on his block's not booked for that show, and he's not there, or he's not at Golden Coliseum. And at this point, I feel like it's a coin flip either way. Though I do kind of lean more towards that's his day off, and he goes to the Dragon Gate show for not being around that month too.
I think I'm 65-35 on the idea of him working the Dragon Gate show over that All Japan show. That's good to know because in my head that was a much bigger show. So I'm glad that you had the schedule pulled up there. But it does lead to the conundrum that we have. You know, I talked last week about Yoshioka winning the belt, and you're going to have a fresh KZ match, and you were going to have a fresh Yamato match, and you could always throw Susumu back in the mix, and you're going to have Bin, and you're going to have a Hyo challenge, and you're going to have a Shun challenge, and you're going to have all these different things, because I really wasn't even playing with the idea of if Kikuta wins, where do they go from here? I found this result to be as shocking as Kai beating Yamato in 2021. Is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, I just because of all the work building up him, building up Yoshioka, everything kind of how Yoshioka has been positioned, and like, okay, now he got the win over the Dreamgate champion in King of Gate. He is out of any entanglements, no Twin Gate. He's going for the title, and at least like, you know what also kind of bummed me out, but like I'll put all my cards on the table. I was completely spoiled before I got into the show, and I finished up the show this afternoon. You know what bummed me out the most when I already knew what was going to happen and during the match? Getting Yoshioka's big match theme for the first time in almost 3 years and going, oh, fuck yeah, this is Yuki Yoshioka. Let's go. And that just not really coming to pass. And I know that I probably am more of the more strident Yuki Yoshioka defenders out there, but that was not the Yoshioka we got in this match whatsoever as well. I did not feel like one instant of Terminator Yuki like turning back the clock to 2022.
That was the interesting thing with this match was I really didn't like, probably the first 20 minutes of it, just because I thought it was dry. It was a little bit reminiscent of the World match where it was just like, oh man, big stage, and this is what you guys are bringing to the table. What a disappointment. And then I thought Yoshioka, what I told somebody earlier today was I thought Yoshioka worked circles around Kikuta, and I don't necessarily think Yoshioka was great in this match, but I do think he tried really hard. I really liked the suplex on the apron, and they held on to the suplex on the floor. I really liked some of the battle hook spots down the stretch. I thought those looked great. I thought he showed a little bit of fire, kicking out of the pile driver and popping up from some of those hip attacks, but I just don't think, and I've said this since the King of Gate match in November, for whatever reason, I don't think these guys bring out the best in each other. I thought Yoshioka was better than Kikuta. I think Yoshioka at this current stage would still make a better Dreamgate champion than Kikuta, but I didn't watch this match and go, these are the two guys that I need to build my company around going forward.
Right, and there's not a... Other than, Ishin pulling Yagi during the high five flow, I don't feel the immediate need for them to be like, okay, this is just match one. Maybe we look at this as a longer program here, just because of the way that it afterwards Kikuta's kind of promo, and I don't feel like that there is like that kind of thing where you go like, okay, Yoshioka has any way to claim to try to do like people banned from ringside or a cage match as a Dreamgate match. It just feels like, okay, now you have done all these things. You've given Yoshioka the title shot. He has lost, and now what to kind of do with them. There was no Rey de Parejas announcements or anything like that, so we're kind of just like left in a lurch just in general going into the future, and especially with them.
So I want to talk about what Kikuta's next step is, but I want to talk about Kikuta 2 steps from now. The finish of this match and then Golden Coliseum in April, I was starting to think, and again, the no Rey de Parejas thing is really weird because when they brought that back in 2023, they did it February to March, and then the last 2 years they've done it March to April, and there's no sign that we're going to get it this year, which if there was ever a need for a really fun tag tournament and just a palate cleanser, I think now would be the time. So it's a really
especially
bizarre...
considering how much TV they have in April.
Yeah, and just, again, you've got Kame Rita, you've got Bin and Hyo, you've got Hulk and Yamato, you've got Dragon Kid and Susumu, let's say, you've got KZ and Gucci, you've got Strong Machine J and Aki. Like, you've got just ready-made unit-specific, really fun teams that I would like to see mix up. Now, look, maybe by the time this comes out, we get full cards, we get Rey de Parejas, but it's not looking that way, which I think is a really bizarre decision, especially this year. But let's work under the hypothesis that we're getting a Golden Coliseum cage match, and Ishin, Kato, Shun, Hamare, Cielo, and Shimizu? Is that probably that feels so? So let's say there's a Kikuta defense there. Now, I personally would really like to see Kikuta versus Daya. I think it's bizarre they haven't done that in a singles match. I think it was bizarre they didn't do that in the singles match leading up to the Yoshioka match where Kikuta just kills Daya. Let's just say it's Kikuta versus Daya. That's at the end of April. World is mid-July. While I would hate to not have a Dreamgate defense between April and July, I could very easily see them doing that. I feel like the clubhouse favorite right now, if you had to predict the Kobe World 2026 main event, which is not something coming out of this show that I would really like to think about, but I would say the clubhouse favorite right now would be Kikuta versus Yoshioka again, with Yoshioka winning.
Yeah. No, like
that feels like, I mean, what else? I mean, I know Jay pitched the idea of doing Kikuta versus Tanaka, where Tanaka breaks the record and wins the Dreamgate belt. And I for as much as I love Tanaka, and my God, do I love Ryoya Tanaka, there would still need to be a Herculean push in place that would get him to that level. I think he will one day very easily waltz into not a Kobe World main event, but multiple Kobe World main events. I don't think he's ready for it in 2026, given what we've seen and how they push guys and how they elevate guys. So if the belt's going to stay on Kikuta, I mean, they're not going to do him and KZ. I think him and Yamato would be really boring. Even if that match is good, I think that's a boring choice. They've already done Ben. You could do Shun again, but man, it just doesn't seem like that's something that, at the very least, I want right now. I think the match they would go back to, assuming Kikuta's the champion, is I think they would go back to Yoshioka.
And then really, at that point, you're just kind of going like, okay, you're doing it at a Kobe World. We've seen this program twice now, and I'm not optimistic about how they build that to it.
No, I mean, how could you? This isn't Okada losing to Tanahashi at Wrestle Kingdom 9 and us sort of over the course of 2015 going like, oh, they're going to run it back and it's going to be better next year. This wasn't a box office success. Everything about Kikuta versus Yoshioka from 2023 to now has been a failure, but I don't know where else they go. I mean, I am so confused. I would love to see, a Hyo title defense at some point. I would love to see a Dai title defense at some point. I think that Tanaka idea is interesting, but I mean, unless they turn somebody from Gaja Dokuro, but even then, I don't get the impression that babyface Yoshiki Kato is going to headline the biggest show of the year 5 months from now. That doesn't seem like a realistic possibility. I don't know what they do. I could give you Brave Gate matches and Twin Gate matches for the next year. I am locked in on those divisions. I think they are killing it. I don't even love the result of the Triangle Gate match, but I think at the very least that's exciting. The Dream Gate scene, I am at a loss for what they're going to do here. I really do not know what that next step is.
And it kind of underlines a common thing that we could say for the last 5 years. Whoever outside of Ryo Saito is in the room, like deciding these sorts of things, they need to smack him about the head and be like, why do you treat your top championship this poorly? Because it seemed like he finally broke out of it.
This is what we talked about for years. He was, and I always use the word cutesy. He'd get cute with the Dreamgate belt, but when he didn't need to. No, this was just bad. I mean, this is a swing and a miss. And the Kikuta stuff, again, I've had this crisis really since he won the title where I was like, okay, I didn't love the build of the Ben match. I didn't love the build of the Susumu match. Gianni did all the heavy lifting in the Gianni match. And then I really hated the build here. But at least with Ben, Susumu, and Gianni, it was like, okay, those matches were either great or they served their purpose. And this was just a miss all the way around. And it's, Gaja Dokuro is a unit, just as somebody that experienced this in real time, they are 5 times better of a unit than Antios ever was. This is not an Antios level unit. This does remind me of the dregs of RED which is when Pac was in the promotion, but when Pac wasn't on tour, that was always a tougher watch because that was really rough around the edges. Diamante, that was a lot of Takashi Yoshida, that was a lot of Yasushi Kanda, and that was an Eita that wasn't really ready to lead. And my takes at the time were that Eita was constantly getting bailed out by the presence of Pac. That's what Gaja Dokuro reminds me of, where Kikuta, to some degree, is getting bailed out by the presence of Shimizu. To some degree, he's getting bailed out by the presence of Ishin. But this is becoming a historically poor heel unit, one that I think is becoming an albatross in this promotion. And I am just stunned, again, to reiterate myself, I am stunned at the result of this match. It felt like they were going to be able to exit lanes cleanly and move on with the future and move on with Yoshioka. And if you ask me, hey, Yoshioka is going to be Dreamgate champion, what's the Kobe World main event? Well, I can give you a number of matches that I think Yoshioka versus X could headline Kobe World with. With Kikuta, I'm left with Yamato, which, again, fine, but boring, or back to Yoshioka. And I think that would be box office poison. That would be Courtney Thorne-Smith and Carrot Top in a movie. That is no good. Thank you.
You got me with that one.
I know. Target audience of one.
You know which late night shows I respect and honor, so good for you with that.
I find myself every night tucking myself with a little Conan panel and just watching the all-time great do his thing with some of the funniest people to ever exist. It's a good way to live life.
Yeah. That really was the sign at the end of the late night talk show. Really.
Oh, it was my exit, absolutely. And I say this as somebody who works in terrestrial radio, where I go, man, I watch some of these current late night talk shows and I go, who the fuck would watch this? This is not good programming anymore. I think, I honest to God think what I do is more culturally relevant. And it's just, part of that is Fallon being Fallon and, Kimmel being in this weird stage of his career and Colbert being stuck in a time machine and, just
Myers just kind of out on an island.
Myers is, he's the best one there is, but
he's also openly lobbying for other jobs.
That's the thing. It's he understands.
He wants to be the U.S. taskmaster so bad.
Yeah, he understands that he will be the last late night host on NBC, and that is becoming a thankless job in a very small island that he's inhabiting. And yeah, it's fascinating. We just that was, I was a regular late night TV viewer up until COVID, and that is probably my biggest behavioral change, was just trying to watch those home broadcasts of all of those guys doing shows from home. Was a real moment of I guess I don't need this anymore. So it's not looking good out there.
Yeah, no, it's dire. But unless you have anything else about the Dreamgate and everything coming out of it, let's talk about the clear high point.
Let me ask you this:
yeah.
What's your star rating on the Dreamgate match?
3.25, because nothing was outright technically wrong. It's just, I got so pissed off with all the interferences.
And I would argue that is technically wrong. I think the way they went about that was objectively poor.
I wrote down after my notes case, sins of the show. My first thing was the bad layout of this main event.
Yeah, it was just one of those where I could see from a very early point of the match that they were going to have to do some really, really impressive stuff down the finishing stretch to get me back on their side. And instead, I thought the finish I thought the finish was a mess too. So this is the stereotypical Dreamgate match where they go for an epic and they don't necessarily succeed. And there was also just a bunch of stuff that I didn't like along the way. So this is, probably about a 3.25 Dreamgate match for me, which is unacceptable on a show this big.
No, I'm absolutely with you there. Moving our way down the card, the semi-main event was the 3-way open, the Triangle Gate title match. Love and Peace champion team going in. Benkei, Hyo, and Mochizuki Jr. versus the 2 challenger teams of Natural Vibes, KZ, Gyuchi, and Aki, and the Paradox team of Yamato, Dragongate, and BB Hulk. It was a standard Classica Dragongate 3-way title match. So there were 2 falls. The first fall eliminated Paradox when KZ converted the EVO into a Skydus Schoolboy. And then the concluding fall, Aki catching Benkei's spear and perhaps the best spinebuster he has ever hurt. The new Open the Triangle Gate champions are the new Natural Vibes pairing of KZ, Gyuchi, and Aki in a match where I have to say I went notebook on this. It's my only notebook match on this show. And for someone who has a lot of questions about Aki, and I still have a lot of questions about Aki, outside of the entrance, he took every step in the right direction. But whoever it is needs to basically be like, you can't wear that. That's just
I'm chalking it up to different culture. I'm gonna stay out of that
entirely
conversation.
it's entirely different culture. It's one of those things that Dragon Gate somehow gets away with. You know,
boy, do I not. I don't want to police that one. I'm just gonna let him do his thing.
It's just 2026. You can't like we're at a point where like almost all of that stuff is done away with somehow in today's culture in the United States. Did not a sudden shock seeing him come out in that outfit.
Yeah, I will co-sign that take. It's not what I was expecting to see. Do I get credit for this Gucci stuff? Like I've been saying for a year now, this guy's ready for something greater.
The way that Kame will forever be in my W column, Gucci is on yours because he's taken to this like a fish to water.
He's
like,
unbelievable.
It is the stuff with him and Junior before the first fall was just incredible. The chemistry that he kind of has with KZ is nice to see. And boy, like that was like the best JoJo knee that Junior has ever done, just completely clearing the clock of Gucci in on this. Like he was fantastic in this one case.
Yeah, one of my notes coming out of this was that I know we've got Tanaka versus Jason lined up as the next Brave Gate match, but we've got to do Tanaka versus Junior now that he's not a Triangle Gate champion. We gotta find a way to get that in the mix because I feel like I'm starting to see a little bit of Junior slander here and there, and I'm not here for it. I don't understand. If you're a wrestling pundit, I'm baffled by the idea that you could watch Mochizuki Jr. and not think like, oh, okay, so he's everything that I want out of a wrestler, and he's how old? Oh my God, let me sign up for the next 15 years of his career. To me, he is just so obviously great as is and will continue to only get better. The stuff
it's
with
just
Gucci,
when they want to turn it on with him.
Yeah,
and I think that might be some people's hang up is that the son of Masaki Mochizuki, in a lot of ways, you would not expect, especially after how his first 6 months went with M3K, for him to kind of be treated like a Dragon Gate young guy in a lot of ways.
Well, it's strange because, I would say, so he debuts in the summer of 2022, right?
Yeah, June of 2022 at the Torimon Reunion 2 show.
We are almost at 4 years of Mochizuki Jr. That is crazy. But I would say from the summer of 2022, and granted he had a number of injuries along the way, but really up until about this time last year, one of the things that I always credited Dragon Gate with was, hey, they're always making sure that Junior is involved in something. This guy was constantly in angles doing stuff. Like I was just looking back, I was looking for something, and I ended up going through some notes of that Ishin Junior feud in the summer of 2022, where they did the Ishin Ricky tag with Masaki Mochizuki, and then it looked like Ishin was going to join M3K, and then that's when he turned and joined Z-Brats, and like that program was really, really good, and it was really well booked, and Junior, for being so young in his career at that point, I thought really shined. But it's odd to say this because he was a Triangle Gate champion for a few months there, but it feels like we're in the stretch where they're doing the least they've ever done with him. But this match was a painful reminder of just how good he is. I mean, Gucci was the MVP of this match to me, but Junior was a very close second, and that's with getting a great effort from Hyo. That's with getting a great effort from Ben. That's with BB Hulk, who I thought was noticeably slow and out of place in the first half of the match, who then ended up having a stellar finishing stretch with KZ.
KZ, yes. Like his best stuff I feel like he's done in years.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the first half of the match, I was like, oh man, like this has to be it for Hulk. They really should have put Kagetora in this spot because I don't think Hulk can hang anymore. And then all of a sudden, he's taking CDJs and rolling through into first flashes, and then he goes for the EVO, and that's when KZ counters him in the Sky to Schoolboy and pins him from that. And that sequence with Hulk was excellent, and Hulk was just as good as KZ was there. This was my match tonight. I was notebook on this. I was notebook on one other match, which I have complicated feelings on, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But for everything they're doing wrong with the Dreamgate scene right now, with everything they're doing wrong with Gaja Dokuro in the presentation, I am filled with life, filled with excitement when I see the fact that they have yet again figured out a way to retool Natural Vibes. And I keep on asking different people. I can't get an answer. Maybe there's just not one on when Flamita's coming back. But if they can keep all 5 of these guys healthy and then add Flamita to the fold, I think that is going to be so exciting. I would have rather Love and Peace retained. I love this Ben, Hyo, Junior trio so much. But given how good vibes were in this match, I'm okay with the result.
Yeah, like Aki is still going to have to do something to get back to where I thought he was coming out of Mochizuki Dojo. But here's the time for him to rise to that occasion, and everything really, he put himself on the right foot. That finish, like the way that I think Ben might be like the most kind of chaotic wrestler maybe in the world, just for the fact of like, he essentially throws his body in most matches and he does not take a match off. So the fact that like, instead of doing either the spear into the corner, which he doesn't really do anymore with the full pad, or the going into the spear for the knockout blow, the fact that instead he is like, okay, this time we're making this the finish, and the momentum is going to make Aki look like an absolute monster, making a spine buster into a finisher in the year of our Lord 2026. Exactly the right kind of move, and I'm ready to see how Aki is going to take the ball and run with it. As Gyuchi, I fully expect like he will be our probably stock up wrestler by the end of this year if everything goes this way and his health keeps up. Like he is just on another level right now.
I'm one good Gucci performance away from saying that this guy has to be on a 30 under 30 ballot. You know, I was close with him last year. I've been coming off of that Yamato match, and I've always really liked just the base that he has. I just like him as a wrestler. I like the way he moves around the ring. It's just a very specific Dragongate thing. He reminds me a lot of, without the super flashy high impact moves, although Gucci's developing them, he moves around the ring the way that Matt Sydal does. There's just something very easy on the eyes. You know, he has grace while also having a physicality to him. It reminds me a lot of Sydal in his prime. I think that is the comp that I've been searching for quite honestly a few years for him now. But I think he reminds me of Sydal the most in the way that he approaches every match. I really like him as a wrestler. I said it after the Yamato match, which was almost a year ago now. I was like, okay, I'm ready to see him get some sort of push, and instead they took away a gimmick, and it was a long road to get here. But my God, this guy right now is having one hell of a year.
Yeah, he is really just a whole lot of fun, and definitely. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm all over the place here, but
it's all good.
I want to mention before we move on, you were talking about, you know, maybe some people just need a reminder of how good Junior is just based on a push. He was my sneaky great wrestler last year. I wrote this in the FSM 50 passageway for him. Normally, it's the award that goes to TJP, where you're like, hey, you know who's actually one of the best wrestlers in the world? It's this guy. Ben is just on a full-blown heater right now. I mean, he's not really getting pushed in any sort of real way. He hasn't had a capital B, capital M big match since that Dreamgate match with Kikuta last year, but show in, show out, I'm enjoying Ben as much as anybody on this roster.
Yeah, and I know that he's kind of worked his way somewhat out of the Dreamgate picture just because of it does not feel like that this is the kind of run that it was going to have rematches with it. I'm so glad with the way that he transitioned into really doing a lot more trio stuff with Love and Peace. And yeah, no, your eye just goes to him on screen, and it's something where I really don't know if anyone throws themselves into wrestling. It's like him and Darby Allin are very alike in that kind of way. And it's one of those things that I feel like with wrestling and all that, it's just great to kind of have a dude's rock kind of wrestler, and that's what Benkei is at his core.
I'm now really sad that it doesn't look like we're getting Rey de Parejas at least at this time this year, because I think the most interesting final they could do would be Kame and Rita versus Hyo and Ben. Like, I
Oh, that
really
would
want to see
rule.
that match. I really, really want that.
And I feel like with the way that the twin division is, we might get that pretty soon. Anything else on the Triangle Gate before we finally get to the point that you're going to get real mad?
No, 4.25, well worth the watch. I thought this was spectacular.
I was 4 flat on that, and that was my match of the show. All Out War 10-man tag, Gaja Dokuro, Big Boss Shimizu, Ishin, Yoshiki Kato, Kai, and Kota Minoura versus the Psypatra and Team 2000X Business Alliance of Shun Skywalker, Hamare, El Cielo, and the chairman, Masa Kitamiya, and the Godfather, Takashi Sugiura. Ends with a Flash Rana hold out of a shot put slam in 9 minutes. Total breakdown between Psypatra and Team 2000X leading up into that. And coming out of it, Shimizu wants a 3-way match, and that is what we will have on Corkin on the 3rd. It's a 3-way of Gaja Dokuro versus Team 2000X versus Psypatra. It's Psypatra and the 3 of Psypatra, Gaja Dokuro, Shimizu, Ishin, and Kato. And Team 2000X is going to be bringing around former Toryumon Gym student Tadasuke.
I thought this match sucked. I thought it was a waste of time. I asked last week what the point of this match was and what it might accomplish, and it is shocking to me how effective and how efficient the Shimizu Natural Vibes program was, and how unfortunately they ran through a lot of what they could do so that he can move on to Psypatra. And man, these have just all been misses. I mean, there was an inherent charm to the Shun match at Cork and Hall with the chair shot and some of the awkwardness that I think played into that match's favor. But I mean, I thought this was just a completely lackluster match given the names involved.
No, absolutely. So it was outside of the undercard, my lowest rated match in the show. I was 2.25. And that is probably me being pretty generous because it was just sprawling. Team 2000X not being on the same page for any of Shimizu's or any of Skywalker's offense. Like Sugiura looked like someone who I genuinely enjoy when he shows up into Dragongate, probably a fair bit more than you do. He looked bad in this.
Yeah.
And it was so underwhelming. I figured that this would be like the pit stop building us up to Golden Coliseum Steel Cage Warfare, but it just feels utter pointless. It felt like you weren't going to draw anyone into this building with Team 2000X if it wasn't Ozawa, to be frank. And I'm kind of glad that Ozawa is not getting involved in this at this point. And I think a real question, and I know it's a topic that has been coming up in the Dragongate channel on the Voices of Wrestling Discord since the show in the last 48 hours is there an issue with the fact that Shun Skywalker, I don't know how strongly he has control over his booking and his character. I know over his character, yes, but his agency, I feel like, has kind of become a problem in this promotion where it just feels like we're just kind of just amusing ourselves to death with him. And it's like, okay, what are you going to do to get him into or make him be in a position where it's going to be a traditional babyface? Because yes, he is still one of the most popular people in this promotion. Hamare sells a crazy amount of merch. It just feels like that the Psypatra thing is purely indulgent at this point, and this feud with Gaja Dokuro feels that way doubly so, especially with this match. It just felt like it was doing stuff for Shun Skywalker, someone who I think is on the Dragongate Mount Rushmore, at least in my opinion. This program and this match has really kind of put me in the position where you were with him last August.
Well, I had that moment of panic coming out of the Kikuta match at Dangerous Gate last year, because I just thought, as we approach the 10-year anniversary of Skywalker's career, he's been, there's a large point of time where I said he was the best wrestler on earth that wasn't named Will Ospreay or Bryan Danielson. And even last year, where in my head, maybe he had sort of an off year, and then, it comes FSM 50 time, and I look at my spreadsheet, and it's like, oh no, I have 25 Shun matches at 4 stars or higher. That's more than anybody in all of wrestling. Like, he had a pretty great year. But I had a moment of panic after the Kikuta match, because I thought, okay, maybe this character work has finally flown too close to the sun. I'm not sure. I feel like he's lost in who he is, and it's starting to affect his in-ring work. And then, he started teaming with Hamare, and Psypatra formed, and they had some really fun tags and some really fun trios. And, I know at various points towards the end of last year, I was talking about, like, hey, Shun and Hamare should run it back in Rey de Parejas. And then he started teaming with Cielo when Hamare got hurt. And I was like, whoa, this is a really interesting tag team. This is sort of like a modernized version of the Motor City Machine Guns, what they have going on here. I would like to see more of this. But I do think we have hit a point when you look at the Skywalker era, you look at his entire career, which we've covered in real time since the very beginning. Under the Psypatra banner, he's doing the least interesting work of his career. As a young boy, for a number of reasons, he was really fascinating. That sort of summer 2016 through summer 2018 phase of his career, he was the guy that we looked at as like, okay, I'm excited to see what his ceiling is, because his ceiling changed from, hey, this guy's a Bravegate champion, to, hey, he could be a really great Twingate champion. I don't think at any point during the first 2 years of his career did we think 3-time Dreamgate champion, but we always thought really highly of him. And then he did the All Japan Junior Tag League with Mochizuki in the summer of 2018. They had that match against Kaz Hayashi and Shuji Kondo. That was a real eye-opener for just how good Skywalker was. And they came back from that and had the Twin Gate match at Dangerous Gate that year with Hulk and Yamato, which is one of my favorite Twin Gate matches of all time. And in a match with Mochizuki, Hulk, and Yamato, Shun Skywalker is the star of that match. And that was his real, like, legitimate coming out party. And from there, you're talking about a guy who has pretty much always been the most interesting thing in this promotion. You and I were in love with Mochizuki Dojo during that era. When he split, it was really interesting to watch him split. That King of Gate match with Mochizuki in May of 2019 is a highlight in both guys' careers. He goes on to have that KZ match at World 2019. I don't love the booking of him in the fall of that year, where he's not in a unit up through his excursion, but he was still doing really solid work in the ring. And then when he comes back, it's Masquerade. And when Masquerade ends, that first year in Z-Brats, it's him and Diamante as a tag team. And then after that, it's, him beating Yoshioka for the Dreamgate belt, and then him and Strong Machine J and their program leading up to World that year. And in the summer of 2024, that's when Z-Brats really starts to become that well-oiled machine unit, where they just had such a high floor, where it seemed like anything they wanted to do, they were able to accomplish. And I think that came from a great character understanding of who Shun Skywalker was as a wrestler. And my point that I made when Valletta joined Psypatra, that must have been October, was I told you, I go, they need to lean into these guys as full-fledged baby faces. This needs to be a unit that rivals Love and Peace for how much good they want to spread into the world. And I know that is, by and large, been the antithesis of Skywalker's character. We don't have a ton of depth on Hamare. We don't have a ton of depth on Cielo. It would be a contradiction for Valletta, but I think Valletta could get away with it. And instead, they have stayed in this Cody Rhodes shade of gray lane that I think has been a disservice to them. I think Skywalker, I don't want to say that he's cold, but he's colder than I can remember him being since he was a young boy. I think Hamare has cooled off since the turn. Cielo, again, really hard to get a gauge on him. But I also think part of the reason Gaja Dokuro is struggling as a unit is they're with Psypatra, and I think Psypatra's a cold unit, and then Gaja Dokuro is a cold heel unit, and then you just have a bunch of stuff like this match that I don't like. Very long-winded, but I think I made my point.
No, I totally agree with you on it. And it's just at a point where it just feels like they're off on that island. And I still believe that for Shun to be a full-fledged baby face, there needs to be some lifting with Daya and Monte, to be quite honest. I think Monte's a lot easier than Daya, to be frank, but we need to get moving in that direction. It doesn't serve anyone other than, I guess, indulging Shun Skywalker's creative tastes to kind of keep it up this way.
Yeah, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish with him right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't even I feel like they're like that bond of him and Hamare. It's not that they've done anything to actively take away from it, but it feels like it's been frayed because they're not leaning into it in the way that they once did. There's just, I mean, he's my favorite wrestler in the world, and Hamare to me is, the most exciting young wrestler not named Mochizuki Jr. And I'm having a hard time as a fan grasping onto this unit. And then when I start to look at it from a critical lens, I go, God, I don't know what they're doing here. It almost has the tone like Psypatra has the same presence in this promotion that Paros del Mal de Japón did in 2022, where it's like off in its own little universe, and that universe isn't always inherently bad. I will always point to the Paros versus Natural Vibes Dragongate match that is the single best match of Nozawa's career. It's not always inherently bad, but it's not what I want out of Dragongate. Like, this promotion has existed for almost 30 years now on very specific things that are needed to make this promotion work. Magnum Tokyo in 2005 being in both Do Fixer and Pos Hearts is something that on the surface shouldn't affect the promotion that much. It's the type of thing that if any other promotion did, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But it made the presence of Magnum Tokyo that year just that's just not how they do it. Like, it was weird to watch him do two units at once. And Psypatra existing in this middle ground is one of those things that Dragongate just doesn't do. You can always have a babyface unit that can lean heel. We saw that a million times with Team Veteran, and I wish we would get more of it from Paradox. But them being in limbo is not doing anyone any favors.
Absolutely not. And especially with this, like, looking like the cage match build, I'd like to hear an argument for any other kind of build, but it just like it needs to get its act together. I mean, like, they have to, by the time that we are talking about Golden Coliseum, if that's the cage match, they really, really can't be tweener at this point.
But
like,
I mean, I don't know. The Cielo thing, maybe I'm off base on, because in December I said they're not unmasking him, get over it, he's not a main event guy, and then it looked like they were flirting with giving him a Dreamgate shot. So maybe they unmask Cielo, but I think he's keeping the mask. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, what you shave Hamare? I mean, is it a Kato babyface turn? I know they're going to do that at some point. I'm intrigued by an Ishin babyface turn, but
Hamare's hair is wild.
Hamare's hair is very long. Ishin's hair is very long. And I get the impression that when they start to push Kato for real, they are really going to push him for real. So there's a few options there, but I gotta be honest. Well, one of my big takeaways from this show was like, we got to get Shimizu away from Psypatra for a little bit. Let him go back to Vibes, or let him go fuck around with D-Courage. I mean, I'm open to some trios matches of Yoshioka, Tanaka, and Daya against Shimizu and whoever. I want to see that. I want to see. I mean, I don't think. Let me look at his cage match real quick. I'm not sure he's been in a televised match against Love and Peace since he came back. So he comes back in January, and it's unaffiliated Psypatra, Love and Peace on a house show in Okayama. Yeah, we have not seen him televised against Love and Peace yet. They only wrestled in Okayama on January 31st. Benhyo, Jackie, and Rita versus Shimizu, Ishin, Kai, and Kikuta. 17 minutes. God, would I like to see that match. So they got to do something with him, because I also I'm bothered by the Noah guys to begin with. I watch Dragongate to watch Dragongate. I don't watch Dragongate to watch Pro Wrestling Noah. I don't need to see Masa Kitamiya throwing Big Boss Shimizu around. I'm not sure what purpose that serves. I know that if I was running Dragongate and a Noah guy came into my company and started deadlifting my big bruising heavyweight who's been destroying my roster, I'd be livid about it. And I did not like seeing Kitamiya manhandle Shimizu the way that he did. I thought that was really counterproductive.
I am not. I was not a fan of how Team 2000X looked in this match whatsoever.
No, and I'm not. I mean, I guess it's better that they're doing a 9-man tag. I thought they were setting up a 3-way match with Shun, Shimizu, and Sugiura, which I think would have just completely died a death. I have zero interest in that match whatsoever. So I guess it's nice that they're doing a tag match, but I mean, when I watch Noah, I'm so bothered by the presence of Team 2000X because I actually think Noah has cultivated a pretty nice roster, but I can't enjoy it because Team 2000X is everywhere in that promotion, and now they're in a promotion that I have to watch and review, and I really don't like that.
And as we move down the card to the Twin Gate match, Jackie Rita, the Twin Gate champions and the uncrowned best tag team in the world, had their latest defense against the D Courage team of Dragon Dia and Marcus Mathers. It was a reptilian Rana liner Jackie knife where Dia went for the reptilian Rana. Jackie rolled through almost like doing a world liner, and then he planted his legs for the Jackie knife to get the win. A real kind of wild finish in a match that where it was on the card, I felt like it probably, this is as much as you probably were going to get for it. And I think it was a very good Twin Gate match, but maybe if this was a main event of a Champion Gate show or like one of those title matches there, they would have had the position to really kind of put the pedal to the metal. But I out of stuff on the show, this was the one of the title matches coming out of it. I was like, yep, this is what I was hoping for. And yes, they actualized on it. And boy, Jackie Rita start 2026 the same way that they ended 2025 as, just an ungodly tag team.
They're unbelievable. I mean, they are the best wrestlers in this promotion at this point. I we've had years and years of, as the kids say, glazing Jackie Kame, and I think our thoughts there are pretty established at this point. I do wonder if we're still underrating Rita and just all the things that he can do. He was just so marvelous at this match. I am making my way through the written review of this show, and admittedly, I'm staring at the last three matches, two of which are pretty daunting to write about. So if you're listening to this on Wednesday, the hope is that the written review is out on Thursday. I did finish writing about this match, and I believe I've made this comparison in the past about certain Twin Gate matches of recent vintage, but I was trying to figure out why I liked this match. I ended up really liking this match by the end of it, but it felt a little strange to me the entire time I was watching it. And I described this match in the review as it was like watching a CZW Mark and Jay Briscoe match and not a Ring of Honor and not a Ring of Honor Mark and Jay Briscoe match. And I prefer the polish of the Ring of Honor match, but every once in a while the CZW match is fine. I mean, Marcus Mathers gives Rita a tombstone on the floor like 2 minutes into this match, and I thought,
out of a skin of the cat.
It was great. It was just the last thing that I was expecting to see at that moment in the match. And I was thinking, are they doing an angle with Rita? Like, is D Courage going to win this? Like, it was, they got me to bite. It feels like, and this is me saying this with my taste and the things that I like and the bullshit that I like in wrestling, it feels like they could have had a great match in a much simpler way. But by the end of this match, I was so fully invested in not knowing the result and not knowing which team was going to win that I do think it was a great, like by definition, a great 4-star match. I found the way they worked it to be bizarre. I applaud them for working as hard as they did, even though, my God, did they do a lot of moves? But in the end, they got me in this, and they got there, and I did end up really liking this match.
You hit the nail on the head at the CZW complex. Spiritually, Ruckus and
Black
Joker
G's.
should have been. Yeah, Black G's should have been in this match. You know, just
against the Briscoes, where it's like,
right.
My preferred Twin Gate match is, Briscoes versus Aries and Strong, Briscoes versus Kings of Wrestling. And I think the Twin Gate matches, spiritually, I think have a similar polish, a similar tone, a similar pacing. This was not that. This was a really weird match, but I do think it was really, like, Mathers. I find some of the discourse on Mathers to be really interesting. And I don't know if that's just where we're at now in Japanese wrestling fandom, where we're just, white guys in Japan are not everybody's favorite, but I think Mathers has been really good on this tour, and I thought Mathers stepped up to the plate here, and I knew that he was going to be in good hands with Rita and Kame. I don't know if Mathers has this level of output in a Twin Gate match against, Minoura and Kai, let's say. But I knew he was going to be in good hands here. I knew he was going to have chemistry with these guys. And I thought Mathers was great. I mean, he really held up his end of the bargain.
Yeah, there was a tilt-a-whirl destroyer in this match that
was
just
awesome.
That completely bent my brain. And then the coolest version of the Jackie Rita moonsault onto the knees, where Jackie immediately rolls it over into a pin, where I was like, well, damn, that's okay. But also moments where I go like, well, Rita has no neck anymore. I think that the Mathers discussion, Case, you sat with me during the GGUSA show and you witnessed me ruin Rich Craish's at least experience of the KZ match about some of the WWE-ification of Mathers. And I've heard people say that it's still there, but I don't see it whatsoever. I think he's really, in a lot of ways, kind of taken to this experience like a fish in water. And maybe it is like that we've had so many luchador foreigners over the last 5 years, and then Johnny, and then you have someone that has the, and I can't believe that I'm actually going to be saying this, but has the letters of WWE next to it, and everyone's like the hairs on the back of their neck go up with this. It just seems like that this is a guy that had an opportunity to do a tour of a company, and it's a company that he has worked with before the WWE ID thing, and he obviously has a lot that he's been learning from it. And I thought that he really acquitted himself real well here, and I'm kind of, in a way, bummed out the fact that I don't know still when he is heading home, but I would like to see him 3 more times over these Osaka and Tokyo shows before he heads out.
Mathers does have hard cam face, but he's doing what he should be doing. And it's an odd thing where I am just so stylistically opposed to the way that he is being trained to wrestle. I love the base abilities that he has. I love his athletic ability. I love the way that he's taken to the Dragongate style. It is at some point just like a genre of music that rubs you the wrong way, where if you're in that WWE system, you're just going to learn to do things that I personally hate, that I just want a level of wrestling that I find to be above that. And Mathers, I think, will always have some of those characteristics, some of those American TV characteristics that I don't always welcome into Japanese or Lucha Libre wrestling, because I just don't want to see him there. But I think he's blending the things that make him a highly coveted prospect in that system with also being a really effective Dragongate wrestler. I mean, I don't want him to go home. I think he's good enough to hang around. And I would just like to see him develop on this roster in this style, because everything that he's shown me, everything of his that's made tape, I think has been really encouraging. He's just a very fun wrestler to watch.
Yeah, I'm totally with you with that. He is just, he adds a little bit of spice that I feel like was kind of there in the Wrestle Jam days. And I appreciate that it's kind of being brought back like that, like talking about the indies of that time, like, and who they would bring in at that time. I feel like he's a perfect fit like that.
I do not think that he's been in over his head at any point during this tour. I've been impressed with him, and we all assume when he got brought over that his tour would end with a Brave Gate match with Tanaka, and if he's going home after this, it's a title match just in a different form. But I would want him back. I would really like to see what he could do. I think the D-Courage partnership works really well. I liked he and Daya as a team here. I like the trios matches that I've seen with him. I was very impressed. And I'm very glad this match existed, because we're racking up one of the stranger Twin Gate lineages ever, with Kame and Rita defending the belt against Monte and Demus, and now Daya and Mathers. 6 years from now, that will be a segment on this show where I forget both of these matches happen, and we have to break down the weirdness of this Twin Gate run so far.
Yeah, it does feel like one of those like impromptu games I throw at you.
It does. The fact that they didn't have like a normal Twin Gate match to sandwich in between those is just very odd. Just the fact that that's where the cage match stands right now of Demus and Monte, which again, sort of forgot about until I watched this match, and now Mathers and Daya. it goes to show how good Kame and Rita are. I mean, these are two of the very best wrestlers in the world. I've spoken to a lot of people that are very bummed they're not going to be in Vegas this year. I am too. I would have made the trip to Vegas had they been there. But at some point, at some point, I think they'll be over in America, and I think they'll blow people's minds. I mean, I really think Rita is becoming such an undeniable talent that it's always a dangerous comparison to it's like Rey Mysterio in WCW. But I do think people would laugh at him until he did one thing, and then I think they'd be completely blown away by what he does. And that's the exciting that's the thing about Mathers that I'm excited about, is just there's not a lot of depth on the US Indies. I know Joe Lanza did a lot of audio on that this week. I don't agree
and it
with
was great.
It was great. I don't agree with I think the problem with the way that some people are analyzing the Indies is that they're waiting for 2000s Ring of Honor to come back in terms of the depth. But that era of indie wrestling, it should have never existed in the first place. It was an embarrassment of riches because
it was a market inefficiency.
Yeah, because wrestling became monopolized, and it became monopolized by an idiot. And that idiot had Johnny Ace working for him, or God forbid, Tommy Dreamer. So idiot on idiot on idiot. That type, there will always be, for me as a fan, I will always have some level of desire to see small room American wrestling that is athletically focused and has the tone of Ring of Honor. Again, I've been going back and watching a lot of Gabe and some Adam Pearce era Ring of Honor lately, and there's just a tone to that promotion that speaks to me as a fan. I love it. I want more of it. I wish it existed in a real way, but we can't go chasing that feeling because that feeling should have never existed. Now, do I wish that current day Ring of Honor was handled a little bit better and that promotion could fill some sort of void of smaller room American wrestling? I do. We'll see if we ever get there. But anyways, the point with Mathers that I want to make is what I'm excited to see is when he goes back to America. I think he was already better than almost anybody on the US indie scene, but I think even after 2 months in Dragongate, I think it's going to be noticeable when he's on a West Coast show or when he's on Beyond. With Deadlock and Prestige closing up, I don't even know where it's going to work now, but I just think his improvements are going to be so much more noticeable than the US indie people that keep on working US indie people.
Yeah, and just to go back on your Jackie Rita and the US thing, just between like Miracle Generation and Violence is Forever, I feel like that there are enough US tag teams that you could kind of get the Jackie Rita kind of experience and have the people that would be able to back it up on the other end. I feel like you could just have that tag team go do indies and it would kill if you get the right people.
Oh yeah. I guess I was so hell-bent on Yoshioka winning the Dreamgate match that I sort of put this back in the back of my mind, but I would not be surprised if the Dragongate USA show that's running with the Game Changer group, I would not be surprised if that is headlined by Kikuta versus Mathers for the Dreamgate belt. That would be a match that I'd be intrigued by.
It'll be tough because for him to he would have to get a fall over Kikuta on the second show of Osaka because Kikuta.
No, he wouldn't. They would. It's a Dragongate USA show.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They would just announce that it's Mathers versus Kikuta.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I'm thinking with booking logic and how things should go. Ryo Saito. Yeah.
But it wouldn't even bother me from a booking perspective. It's his homecoming. Back to America. I thought they should have made Yamato versus Swan a Dreamgate match last year, and Swan definitely did not have the pedigree that Mathers has built up just in recent vintage. So I would not be surprised if that's the headlining match. I thought that it might be because Yoshioka doesn't have a unit traveling with him. He's the only D-Courage guy. I thought they might do Yoshioka versus Mathers, but there's 4 Gaja Dokuro guys coming over, so you could still do Ishin, Kai, Kato in a trios in Kikuta in a singles match.
No, it makes a lot of sense to me, and that gets him something in it. And I think that show needs something like that enabled to kind of at the top of the card, other than the Dragongate 6-man, given how things kind of were in Vegas last year, at least. The final meat part of the show in the last title match was the Bravegate Championship. Ryoya Tanaka versus Genki Horiguchi. Ryoya Tanaka gets his V8 off of a completely, like, maybe the best one he ever hit, Stardust Press. And I thought this match, on a show that, other than the Triangle Gate, everything underachieved, I thought that or the Twin Gate, I feel like hit expectations. Let's be fair here. I thought that this match exceeded my expectations, and maybe we should have given Genki Horiguchi a little bit more credit, given who he is at his point of career, because I felt like he turned the clock back enough to have maybe not a all-timer and not one of the best Bravegate matches of Tanaka's run, but definitely one that, coming out of it, that I was like, all right, that was better than I expected it to be.
So I wouldn't agree, just on the verbiage basis, that he turned the clock back. I do think it was a fascinating match in terms of Horiguchi's immobility being the story of the match, and watching Tanaka not be twice as fast as him, but 3 times, if not quadruple the speed of Horiguchi. It looked like right when they started getting into the finishing stretch stuff that Horiguchi just wasn't going to be able to keep up. There's sort of an ugly cross saber counter sequence in there where I was like, oh man, they're going to lose it. Genki's going to go out with a whimper. But this is one of the rare matches where I feel like the star rating system is flawed, because I gave this 3.25, but it really was an enjoyable match to see Tanaka escape all the backsliders, to see Tanaka go for a backslide himself, that cross saber into the Billiken Kid move, into, like you said, the great Stardust Press, where Genki just narrowly scooted over to make sure that Tanaka hit it perfectly. Master of the craft, Genki Horiguchi. A really interesting match to watch, just in terms of, I mean, this has to be the last Genki Horiguchi title match we ever see. He has nothing left. And in watching a guy work with the tank on E is normally not something that I enjoy, but I think Genki is so good that he actually got away with it here.
I thought that everything about this, I was only 3.5 stars, but I don't feel like this match could have been a 4-star match. I just given everything, its card positioning, this was not in a position to be the show stealer, but I just like working the knee and the way that the leg work was, being able to see Tanaka do like that variant of a figure 4 and just other aspects of his game just were really, really fun to see. And then Genki selling the knee on the beach break, and
Great.
That kind of being the thing that he went to the well and he shouldn't have, basically, and that led to his downfall. I just thought it was just a really smart bit of pro wrestling there. After the match, after Tanaka gets his belt back, gets his certification certificate, Jason Lee lays him out, making his return, and he is getting a Bravegate shot on Tuesday. We'll have to see if Jason makes 82 kilos in a week.
I'm quite excited for that. Jason, I do think, looked smaller than he had
Noticeably
been.
smaller.
Noticeably smaller, because he was ginormous before he went out with an injury. Yeah, he was huge. He looked like Scott Steiner, but I'm excited
Scott Steiner
for that.
meets Atsushi Saito.
Yes, exactly. That's right. I think that's going to be a great match.
Way. Yeah, no, it honestly, I'm glad they announced it, because to me, that's the match of the show right now. I'm intrigued to see how they're going to fill out the remainder of the card now with okay, I guess it's kind of its position to do a Mather send-off match maybe with the other 2 members of D-Courage, but the rest of the card will be fascinating to see how they do that. And I think this is a strong V9. It's a V9 we did not expect. I think there's a lot of other potential title matches for him to still reach 12, but it does kind of feel in a way that if this is that kind of run, Jason should be a title defense. And especially if Jason, given Jason's return and all of that. And I just think it's going to be such a different match, because it'll be someone that is going to outright outpower Tanaka. And that's something we have not seen in this Bravegate run. And I think that that's going to be a fun thing to explore on Tuesday.
So right now we have seen title defenses against Jun Masuoka, Masaki Mochizuki, Jackie Kame, Ria Fuda, Flamita, Billiken Kid, Rita, and Genki Horiguchi, without going into rematches. Then we'll have the Jason Lee match, obviously. That leaves, and he beat UT for the belt. So I would say Gucci has to be in the fold. I think Daya has to be in the fold. Dragon Kid at Golden Coliseum would be a very fun match. I would like to see that. You're holding off on the Hyo match. I don't know if you saw this, but Hyo was on the fan list for the Okinawa tour in May, which might tip off that he's not in the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, which I think would be really interesting if he wasn't. So you've got a Hyo match that you can get to at some point, and I maybe Estrella, but I doubt it. So the list of first time opponents is starting to get a little bit smaller, but Tanaka still has some runway there. And I think they're going to have him break the record. I feel like they're starting to lean into the story. I think this Genki match was a really interesting one in terms of the story of this title reign. And, Kame and Rita might be the best overall champions of this promotion just because we know what their output is and how high their floor is. But this Tanaka Bravegate run, it has been exceptional, and it has put a lot of prestige back into a belt that for a few years there was really struggling, to a point that the storyline was the Bravegate belt just isn't what it used to be. And a credit to Daya, a credit to Yamato, a credit to UT, and a credit to Tanaka for getting this belt back on track.
Absolutely, I'm with you on that. And just blazing through the undercard, Jiro Shimbashi versus Toru Owashi was more of Shimbashi selling than really the Salaryman Act. He physically submits with a literal white flag to prevent Toru Owashi from splashing on him, and for that bit alone, I had a chuckle, and that was fine enough for me. I assume no thoughts really on a Jiro match.
Yeah, I enjoyed the finish. It made me laugh.
Yeah, the four-way tag Mochi Fuji versus SMJ and UT, the original JBs, and Punch Tominaga and Monde Ryu was kind of like at a time on the show where there was awful audio sync. Gaora's production is on my list of sins, but I don't feel like that might be a topic in a future show. But just it really kind of grounded down the first two matches, like seeing spots and then 2 seconds later hearing the bump. And this one had a whole lot of Punch Tominaga machine suplex hold. Wins it for Strong Machine J. Not really any sort of build whatsoever for the All Japan match happening in there, which made me feel like it was kind of useless to have.
It was a completely useless match. It was in theory to build to the All Japan All Asia tag match, but I don't think it did a very good job of that.
Luis Monte and Kazuma Kimura opened the card. Kazuma Kimura has inherited Kazuma Sakamoto's Dragongate theme that he used exactly once, which is a kind of a funny little note there. And this was there was a better match between these two, I felt like, and I think that part of it.
I thought this fucking rocked. I was so into this.
It could have been that the audio sync completely pulled me out of it, to be fair, just because it's one of those things that, case I hate it, but like my production mind kind of fixates on those kinds of things. But in that case, I'll sit back and hear your pitch for it.
I noticed the audio stuff way more in match 2 than I did this one, so it didn't affect me in this match. Kimura just blows me away every time I see him. I go back to the point that I just think they should have put him in Psypatra, and I think that might have solved a lot of issues for that unit. I know that would have been, other than Homare, a historically quick elevation for a guy, but every time I watch him work, I feel like he's ready to do way more than what he's currently doing. Watching him throw around Monte, who is not only big for this roster, but Monte is just a big guy in general, and he was tossing Monte around like he was nothing.
The wild arm breaker that he try to go for?
So there's 2 great arm breaker spots in this match. Kimura does a judo throw that I don't understand how it doesn't knock his opponent out cold. The velocity in which he throws these guys is unbelievable. So he does a judo throw to Monte and then transitions into a cross arm breaker. Monte then flips out of that into like the El Hijel del Santo camel clutch, which I thought should have been the finish because that had me up on my feet. Like, I loved that spot. I thought that was so cool. Instead, Monte just ends up sort of letting go of the hold. And then that's when Kimura does he sends Monte off the ropes, and then leaps over Monte into an arm breaker, which is a spot that I will say I don't think anybody else in wrestling is doing. And it didn't look clean, but it did look real. And I thought it was really cool the way it ended up looking. So that ended up working for me. But man, I really liked this. And Monte played his part well, but I continue to be really impressed with Kimura, and I really wish they would do something with him.
Yeah, and especially with the idea that Shimbashi, is come out. He's no longer bottom man on the pecking order, and then you look at, all right, they elevated Gyuchi and Aki. Feels like that you could start doing something with him right now. Like the lane is there for him to kind of have more of the highlight that he had upon his debut. It feels like when I look at my rookie kind of momentum thing, it's really it's what it should be for him given his stage of career, especially expectation wise. But seeing how naturally gifted it is, I would love to see this with, of course, no audio sync issues, but giving them like 10 minutes in Kobe, and I feel like that this could be like a absolute like belter. Hey, go out of your way to check out this random match on a Kobe Samba Hall show.
Yes.
And that is Uno Dos Tres, the Dragongate Dragon Festival that was yesterday as of time of recording from Fukuoka. We will be back next week on expect a later recording time of either getting the release out on the 5th and the 6th for that, running down what we do know for this next weekend. We only have one match as of time of recording. Announced for the double shot in Ideon 2 Osaka. This is the last time they're running Ideon for the year. Everyone is out of the building for all the renovations, but it's the Gaja Dokuro versus Psypatra best of 3 singles match series. It's Skywalker, Hamare, and Cielo naturally, but Kikuta is getting involved on this one. Him, Shimizu, and Minoura. They say that it's going to be done by a lottery selection. I hope the lottery selection is they bring back the tug of war rope and you grab sides and then they look and see what side you're holding. I feel like that'd be a nice thing to bring back for this.
It'd be very nice to see that.
And then we've talked about it already, but the Tuesday Cork and Hall show, it has now the Open the Brave Gate Championship. Ryoya Tanaka is going for V9 against a returning and slimmed down Jason Lee. 6-man tag 3-way match. Don't think this is going to be 2 falls. I think this is going to be 1 fall to the finish. Psypatra, Gaja Dokuro, Shimizu, Ishin, and Kato. And from Pro Wrestling Noah, Team 2000X, Takashi Sugiura, Masakita Miya, and Tadasuke. And as we knew going into Uno Dos Tres, are still I expect to be the main event of the night. The All Japan, All Asia Tag Team Championship. Masaki Mochizuki and Don Fuji defend against Strong Machine J and Tatsumi Fujinami. Ryohei Wada is going to be the referee. It's going to be an interesting week. There's a lot of things that we just don't know about these cards and these what traditionally would be a pretty big kind of time of the year in the old schedule.
Yes, yeah. These are not Champion Gate shows, so do not expect a written review for the Osaka stuff, but we will talk about it next week.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it this week on Open the Voice Gate. You can, again, follow us on social media at Open Voice Gate, both on Twitter and Blue Sky. We talked about the Voices of Wrestling Discord at the Dragongate channel, but there's also the Open the Voice Gate channel there, and we have a lot of discussion, and they're coming out of last week's Those Days episode. Thanks to everyone for your kind words of that. There's a really cool note in there about from Tim Cook talking about tape sales and Lynch and Jeff Lynch and like the Mask League and all of that. That's kind of interesting, but that's where we post the match listings, the show notes, and also any schedule changes that is on the Voices of Wrestling Discord and the Open the Voice Gate channel. And that's going to do it for us. We'll be back with you late next week. Take care, everyone.
Hello, Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network listeners. I am Jeff Hawkins, co-host of Shake Them Ropes, with a very special announcement. If it's been a while or you've never listened to us before, the original gang is back. Myself and Rob McCarran. back talking wrestling. We have no idea where this show's going to go, where we're going to keep any of the old bits or any of the old things in there. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a journey, and we'd like for you to come along with us. Only on Shake Them Ropes on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.